Welcome to episode 2 of Pico-8pril. And if you haven't seen episode 0 or episode 1 yet, then just go back there and watch those two, because it'll let you know what Pico-8pril is and what we're going to do here. And also, each one of these lessons are going to build on themselves. So go back and watch those. Come back here when you're ready. Hey everybody, it's Chris from FamilyGeekery, and this is episode 2, but before we get into what we're going to be learning in this episode, we did give you a challenge at the end of episode 1, and that challenge was to print the word hello about 10 lines down on the screen, using just what you knew from watching that episode 1. Now, as we build through this course, you're going to see lots of easier, better, smarter ways of doing that. But this was, like I said, just a challenge to see if you could figure out how to get that done. So I'm going to go ahead and load up my result here by changing my directory to challenges and loading up video 1 solution. And that's what it should look like. So I showed you that at the end of episode 1 and gave you guys some time to look at that. So hopefully you found a solution to it. But let's go ahead and see how I did it. Now, remember, there's lots of different ways of doing this. Just because I did it one way doesn't mean that's the only way, doesn't mean that's the right way. If you found a different way, then awesome. If you found a different way, let me know down in the comments below how you did that, because I'm curious. But let's go ahead and see what we did. Now, we knew we had to have at least one print statement that says hello, but we had to get it down 10 lines. So how do we get that down 10 lines? Well, the easiest approach really was to do this. So I've got here everything in the init, because I didn't want to loop through anything. I just wanted to clear the screen once, print empty quotes, which is just really just that. It's just empty, and it does a carriage return at the end of each one of these prints. So it makes the next line happen. So boom, 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 9 times. I just printed empty lines, and then I printed the word hello. Now, because we have the function update and the function draw down here, we do have the game loop is still going. There's just nothing in those two functions. So they're both empty. Everything is just done once, and then the program Pico-8 just keeps on looping through just nothingness. Now, if we had put this in the draw where you would think you would put your print statements, what do you think would happen? I'll give you a second to think about that. If we took the clear screen and then these 10 lines of print and actually put them in the draw function here, what would happen? So you think about that for a second. I'm going to do some fancy magic with a cut and paste. And we are going to see what happens. I'm going to fix this tab indent just because it looks funny. So now we've got an empty init, an empty update, and everything in the draw. So let's go ahead and hit run. Hey, look at that. Does the same thing. So in this case, it doesn't really matter if you do everything in the init, print the stuff, clear the screen, print the 10 lines once, and then just leave the loop going. Or if you do nothing in the init, nothing in the update, and just draw it, and every time we cycle through, every 30 times per second, it clears the screen and prints these 10 lines. So you could have done either one of these, it would have worked. Now, if you do separate the clear screen into the init, then it's going to do something a little bit different. But this is what we were looking for. So hopefully you got something close to that. Hopefully you didn't lose any sleep over it. And that's the end of the challenge for episode 1. We'll have a challenge at the end of this episode as well. So let's talk about what we're going to be getting into in this episode. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about variables and variable types. And this is a very important concept. It's a very simple concept, but a very important one. So let's go ahead and go back to our main directory here. Let's reboot just to get rid of everything that we had there and start with a clean slate. So we're going to be talking about variables and variable types. And this is something that you're going to be using in every programming language, these same concepts, and they're easy to learn right here in Pico-8. So we're going to start off by defining the three different types, or the three main types of variables we're going to start with. But I want you to understand that every concept that we learn in the series, you'll probably learn more about it later in the series. So we won't be completely done with variables today. We'll retouch base with them later as we learn more concepts, and that's just the way it works. Everything builds on itself. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss it. So let's talk about the three different types of variables. We'll start off with strings. And strings are simply just some amount of text. Now, these strings are usually going to be encapsulated in quotes. So I can have, the string dog. It's just some amount of text. It can be a single word. It can be a sentence. It can be a paragraph. That's just going to be a string. So it's basically, they call them strings because they are a string of letters, put together. The next one is going to be easy to understand. It's just a number of some sort. So numbers don't go inside quotes. You're just going to put, 100 or 50 or whatever the number is. And we're just going to do that nice and easy. And then the last one you may not have heard about is called a boolean, or a lot of times you'll just call it a bool for short. And a bool is simply just true or false. That's it. It's got two options, true or false. So we're going to define that to a variable, to some boolean, to let the program later on check, hey, is this true? Is this false? Is this happening? Is this not happening? And they are very important and very handy to have. So those are the three main types we're going to talk about. Now I've put these two dashes here. I don't know if we've talked about comments yet, but anytime you want to type something into the program to give yourself some notes, then that's just called a comment, which means the text will be there. It grays it out for you. It'll sit there in the program itself, but it does not execute. So Pico-8 won't take any of that text and try to make it into code. You can see anytime I'm typing in something that it wants to execute, it makes it a different color. So these comments are just ways for us as the programmer to either leave ourselves notes or leave someone else notes. On Pico-8, you can go in and find a bunch of different programs from different people that have made them. And if they're nice, they will comment things nicely for you, so you can go in and make changes or learn from them. But today we're just going to use them just simply to put some text on the screen and not have it execute. All right, so let's get into the different types of, see what these different things can be assigned to. So let's go ahead and start off with our init function. And this is a good place to go ahead and define a couple things. So right when the program starts, let's go ahead and define some things. And usually they're good things to define that may or may not change ever. We may change them programmatically as we go, but sometimes we just want to define something and make it never change. So something like a name, my name, let's say we're going to assign that Kevin. And you can see what I've done there is I've taken a variable name, or a variable, and I've given it a name. In this case, I gave it the name. And I said that's going to be equal to something. I'm assigning it some string in this case, and I'm assigning it this string Kevin. Now, this programming language that we're using, this Lua programming language that's built into Pico-8, we don't need to define this variable as a type. Now, I call that typecasting in other languages, where you have to tell it up front, hey, this is going to be a string named name, and it's going to be equal to Kevin. We're just going to say name equals Kevin, and Pico-8 is smart enough to know, hey, he gave us a string, so name now is a string. So that's one of the things I love about Pico-8 and Lua. Now, we don't have to have these spaces in here. Sometimes it looks neater, sometimes it doesn't. I'll go ahead and leave them in there. But right now, we've got a program that is just assigning the word Kevin to some variable name. Now, maybe Kevin has an age. So age is going to be a variable. And now we're going to assign it a number. So let's say 21. Now you can see what's happening here is the name of the variable is staying gray. And as soon as we give it a value, that value is 21. That value was always 21. That value is blue. So it recognizes that this is a variable. This is what it's being assigned. And it's just an easy way for us to see that, hey, we've assigned something. It's making it blue. That means it recognizes it. So we've got 2 variables assigned. Let's go ahead and assign a third one. We're going to make a boolean this time. So we're going to see if Kevin is happy or not. And the program's going to track whether or not he's happy. So we're going to make that true or false. Now, as soon as I typed in TRUE, it turned blue. It could have just as easily been false. But if you misspell false like that, like I do all the time, it doesn't make it blue. So that's, again, just another key to us that we have typed in something that is not right. In this case, it's not even blue because it doesn't think it's a number. There's no quotes around it, so it doesn't think it's a string. It's not spelled the correct way, so it doesn't think it's a Boolean. It's just thinking that maybe this is a number somewhere, and it's going to assign it to that. Now, in this case, if you have a number that you haven't assigned yet, that number is going to be nil. I think we saw that in the last episode, that something was nil because it hadn't been assigned anything yet. So if we went to print out happy right now, I bet you it would just say nil because we've assigned it something that doesn't even exist. So don't do that. Spell things right. So now we've got our init function all done. All we've done is just initialize 3 variables, and that's it. So obviously somewhere in the program we're going to be using these variables. So let's go ahead and continue on with our functions. Now we don't necessarily need an update function in this particular program that we're going to be working with today, but I'm going to put it in there anyways just in case. And let's go ahead and do our draw because we are going to want to put something onto the screen. So let's see how we can use these variables. And in the very simplest way, let's just go ahead and put them on the screen. So I'm going to start off with this, clearing the screen first. Let's go ahead and test to make sure everything's working right. Yep. We cleared the screen. We assigned some stuff at the very beginning. We don't see anything else because we haven't done anything with it yet. So now let's do something with it. Let's go ahead and print. And we're going to learn more and more about this print statement as we go on. But we know that we're going to print some amount of text. Now, before we just typed in something like that, we just told it exactly what to print. In this case, if this first argument of this print, what did we call it before? We called it a function, but this print command or function, it's looking for an argument, and that first argument is, hey, what do you want me to print? Just simply that. What do you want me to print? And before we were giving it a string, even though we didn't know it was a string, but Pico-8 knew it was a string because it's inside quotes. So now we're going to just say name. And it doesn't have to be in quotes. In fact, it shouldn't be in quotes because we don't want to print name on the screen. We want to actually print Kevin's name on the screen. So if we just type in name, we've assigned this variable right here up in the program to be Kevin. So I'm expecting when I hit run, it's going to clear the screen and it's going to print Kevin. So far so good. We've got a variable assigned. We've typed it out onto the screen. Let's go ahead and see if we can do the same thing with our age. Now again, we're just putting a variable in there. It doesn't have to be a string. It just has to be something that we want to print to the screen. And I can just type in age. So in this case, age has already been assigned as 21. So Pico-8 knows it's a number. It knows that it's assigned 21. And if I hit run, I'll expect to see Kevin and then a line break and then 21. So everything so far so good is working. But that's not very handy, right? Just putting Kevin 21 on the screen. Normally there's some amount of text that goes with it. So maybe there's some text that leads up to where you're actually filling in the blanks with a variable. So think back when you were a kid and you played with those Mad Libs, right? Remember those books, Mad Libs? And it would have some amount of text, and then it would have a blank, and that blank said it had to be a verb or a noun or an adjective or something. And you defined those beforehand, or you had your friend define those beforehand, and then you read them and everybody laughed, and those were great. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to have some amount of text that we're going to put on the screen, and we're going to fill in the blank with whatever this variable is. So let's go ahead and change this line here. I don't want to just put Kevin on the screen. I'm going to put my name is, and now what do? I want to put the name Kevin up there, but how do I do that? Now what we're about to do here is what they call concatenating strings, and that's just fancy words for meaning mashing two strings together. So this right here, my name is a string, and I can certainly put that on the screen. My name is. Now I need to add to that Kevin. So I want to put name in here also. So my name is, and then let the program figure out what the name is and put that on the screen. Now this isn't going to work. We've got a syntax error, which means the syntax is what I'm typing. Error means I did it wrong. And it says right there, line 17. So if I look, sure enough, I'm on line 17. And I told you that wasn't going to work because I've got a string here and a string here, but nothing to concatenate them. So the way Pico-8 and Lua handles this is 2 dots. So that just means I want to mash up this string here with this string on the same line right next to each other. So now if I hit run, I've got my name is Kevin. So you saw that I had to add in this line here, this space here. Otherwise, if the string was just my name is, and then I'm concatenating that to the variable name, I didn't tell it to put a space, and it did exactly what I told it. I didn't tell it to put a space, so it didn't put a space. So that's something that you'll just get used to. Sometimes you'll add the space at the end of your first string. Sometimes you'll add a space to the beginning of your next string, because this doesn't have to be a variable. I can certainly concatenate 2 strings here and make this Kevin. And without any space in there, we know what's going to happen when we run it. It's going to smash that is and Kevin together. So, like I said, sometimes you'll add a space here and it would work. And sometimes you'll add that space here and it's going to work. Now, because we are using a variable here, we have to have the space here because we can't really add a space here. Now, sometimes you'll actually see you won't be able to add a space here, so you'll see something like this, which I'm basically concatenating 3 strings, right? My name is the first string, and then I'm adding to that an empty space, and then I'm adding to that whatever this variable name is assigned. So if I run that, it'll look exactly the same, but it's just a lot easier in this case to get rid of this second string and just add my space right in here. Now, like I said, there are times that you're going to have to concatenate in 3 things for whatever the format rule is to do that. But in this case, this is simple. So far so good. We got defined some different variables. We are printing them to screen, and we are concatenating strings. So let's see if we can actually concatenate a number to a string. So let's try the same thing. We'll go I am, and I want to make it I am whatever his age is old. So I am 21 years old. So in this case, so far I've got I am, which is a string, and I put my space in there. And I've got age, which is the number, which should be defined as 21. And so far, so good. I am 21, but I want it to say I am 21 years old. So to do that, we're going to concatenate another string in here. And this time, I'm going to have to put that space at the beginning here because I can't put a space in with this number, right? This is just a number. It's not a string. So let's add the space here so that we don't end up with 21 and years all smashed together. So now we've got, my name is Kevin. I am 21 years old. So this is how, anytime you're typing any kind of text to screen, or, a score that would be a number to the screen, this is how you're going to do something like printing out. If I wanted to make another variable here, and we're keeping track of a score, which may be updated in an update function, then I can print score, don't forget our quotes, score equals, leave that space there, and add in the score. And then, of course, don't forget to close that parentheses because this function will not be done until it is. And that's how you're going to get something if you're tracking a score on the screen. You're going to use a variable for that number that's always changing, and you're going to do that. Same thing with like lives. If you're tracking lives, 3 lives, 2 lives, 1 live. Like in Mario Brothers, then same thing. You're going to have some text up there concatenated to some variable of a number of some sort. All right, so let's get rid of this. This is what I wanted to do, but I've got one more variable up here, this boolean, and we're going to change that back to true again. And I want to do something with this. We can get rid of this score. It doesn't hurt anything, but we're done with it, so let's get rid of it. So I want to do something with this, and I want this third line to say whether or not Kevin is happy or not. Now I can't just put something on the screen like Kevin is happy. Kevin, let's say Kevin happy equals, and then concatenate that to this. Let's see what happens there. Nope. It says attempt to concatenate a global happy, which is a Boolean value. So we can't do that. So how are we going to use this variable, this Boolean variable, to put on the screen here that Kevin is happy or not? Well, it's going to take a little bit of extra programming to happen, but I want to show you how that works. So I'm going to pause the video real quick. I'm going to quote up a way to do this, and I'll come back and I'll show you the result. All right, I typed in a couple extra lines of code that I'll show you what I did. We're not going to explain what is actually happening because it's going to build, like I said, it's going to build upon some of the things that you'll learn throughout this series. But I just wanted to show you how we use these Booleans and why they're useful. So you can see here on the screen that I successfully put, my name is Kevin, I'm 21 years old, and Kevin is happy. Now we know that Boolean, we couldn't get it onto the screen as being happy and defining it that way. So I'm using a little different way of assigning this text to the screen. But I am able to change Kevin's happiness. I've got a lot of power here by hitting the X button. And if I hit the X button on my keyboard, now Kevin is no longer happy, he's sad. And if I hit it again, he's happy. Sad, happy, sad. See how much power I have? So basically every time I hit this X button, I'm changing the state of that Boolean from true to false. So I'm just flipping it. If it's true, I'm making it false. If it's false, I'm making it true. So just as many times as I hit that X button, I can toggle that. Now let's go ahead and, if we go into the program, I've taken, and in the second tab here, which we can add as many tabs as we want just by hitting this plus sign. And this is a good way of kind of separating out our functions and some of our logic just to keep things tidy. So on this first tab that we start with, tab 0, we still just have our 3 functions here. But you can see I added in an update happy function. So I'm calling another function called update happy every time the program updates. And then I'm adding in, or I'm calling in this draw happy every time we're drawing. Now, these two did not exist before, and now they do over here on this second tab. And all I've done basically is on the update, I've said, hey, if I hit the button X, make whatever happy is assigned to, which is either going to be true or false, make it the opposite of that. Now we're going to learn more about these operators here, but not means just make it the opposite of what it was, which is very handy for a Boolean because there's only one thing that true can be opposite of, and there's only one thing that false can be opposite of. So happy was true before. If I hit the X, then it's going to be false. If I hit the X again, it's going to be not false, which means it's true. Hit the X again, it's going to be not true, which is false. So all this does is it says, hey, if you hit the X button, make happy the opposite of what it was. So that's happening every time the function update is happening. So it's basically its sole function is just looking for if I'm hitting the keyboard or not. And sometimes that's all you're doing in an update is just checking to see if the user is hitting anything. Now in the draw down here, and again, this is going to be conditional statement that we'll learn more about in a couple more episodes. This is basically just saying, hey, if happy is true, then print name, which was assigned Kevin, is happy. Otherwise, or else, print Kevin is sad. So that's all it's doing is it's checking what happy is. If it's true, then he's happy. If it's not true, which means he's got to be false, then he's sad. So those two functions are happening all the time. This one is waiting for me to hit a button. This one is waiting for this update to change the status of this original variable. If this wasn't in here, then it would never change. This thing would print out that Kevin is happy, and it would never change because nothing was there to update it. And if this wasn't here, I could hit the button all day long, and it would just never put anything on the screen because the draw function is just not there. So now we see how to assign variables, how to get them on the screen, how to concatenate them with some text, how to use a Boolean. And there's one more thing I want to show you in this episode, and then we're going to call it quits. So why go through all this trouble when I could have just made this say, my name is Kevin? Just make a string that says, my name is Kevin down here. I am 21 years old, and I am happy. Well, if this is the only thing that this program was doing, then certainly it'd be a lot easier to do than assigning values up here. Just type it out. Just put it on the screen. But the real value of this is the fact that we can come up into our knit screen or anywhere along the way we can update something. And let's not even mess with this. Let me just, in the update, change the name to Charlie and change the age to 12. So it assigns it at the beginning somewhere in the program, which is going to happen real soon, right away, and it's going to happen every 1/30th of a second, basically. It's going to change the name and change the age, and then it's going to draw it to the screen. So we'll never even see Kevin is 21. we're only going to see, my name is Charlie, I'm 12 years old, and in this case, it even changed Charlie because we were using, in this, right here, we were using not Kevin, but we were using the variable of name. So I can change something one time someplace, and I don't have to go back and retype this code because maybe I've got this name variable used 100 times in my code, and I don't want to have to go back in there and what they call hard code the name Kevin into all 100 of those places. I want to change it one time right here and then let the program change it in all those 100 places because I've assigned it a variable. So this is a very powerful way of having something assigned, having something that may change or you may want to change at some point, and it doesn't affect anything. So think about something like if I'm making a simple game that I'm shooting, asteroids or something, and every time I shoot an asteroid, I'm going to get some amount of points. Well, maybe when I first started making the game, I wanted to get 10 points for every time I shot an asteroid. But then by the end of when I'm ready to publish the game, I decide it's more balanced if it's 20 points. Well, if I had hard-coded in 10 points all throughout that game, I'd have to go through and I'd have to change a whole bunch of stuff. Whereas if I had a variable at the very beginning that said points for asteroid, which is a horribly long variable name, equals 10, then I would just have to come up here one time, change that to 20, and the game is exactly the same. I didn't have to change 100 lines of code or 100 different places that value was, and I've just changed it in all those places with one simple keystroke. So that's what variables are for. All right, so remember that the stuff that we did here on this second tab here, you are not responsible for understanding that yet. We're going to learn that later. So we're just going to forget all that. We're just going to remember what we learned about variables, and now it is time for the challenge of episode 2. So I'm going to give you guys a challenge, have some fun trying to figure it out, and then in episode 3, we'll show you the solution. So let me go ahead and mock something up for you real quick, and I'll be right back to explain your challenge. All right, for our episode 2 challenge, I'm going to have you all make a Mad Libs. So using what we learned in this episode, I'm going to show you where you're going to end up. This is what you're going to end up with. We've got 3 sentences here. Billy ate some banana. He was jumping all night. He is a smelly 12-year-old. Now, that's what the end result is going to be. And what you're going to do is set up your init function with these 4 variables. Food, which is going to be a string, which is going to be a type of food. Verb, which is going to be a string, which is going to be a verb ending in ing. Adjective, which is going to be an adjective, of course, another string. And then age is going to be a number, just any number. Now, you're going to set these up after you ask somebody for a type of food, then type it in here. A verb ending in ing, type it in here. An adjective, type it in here. And then whatever number they give you, type it in here. And then you need to make the rest of the code. Now, I've got it over here, but you're going to make the rest of the code to make this pop up on the screen. So you can see there that a lot of the text I gave you, Billy ate some, and then you're going to have to put in your food. He was that verb all night, and then he is a adjective, age, year old. So this is what I want the end result to be. This is what you're starting with, and you are going to make the rest happen. So you're going to use all the same skills that we learned in this episode: concatenation, defining strings, printing them to the screen. And hopefully this one isn't too hard. Have some fun with it. Let me know down in the comments what you come up with, if you got this one right away or if it took you a couple tries. And most importantly, have some fun with it. So that is going to end episode 2. In the next episode, we're going to learn more about strings. We're going to do some more stuff with it, and we're going to do more fun stuff, putting them onto the screen, to make it look a lot less dull than what it looks right now. So look forward to that. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss that. That's going to be next Monday, because these episodes are coming every Monday and Friday through the month of April, and then some. So keep an eye out for that. Have fun with this challenge. Hope you understood everything that I said. I tried to explain things thoroughly. These videos may be a little bit longer than other videos out there on Pico-8, but I want to make sure that everybody understands everything. So we're going to take our time with it. Let me know down in the comments also what you think about the pace so far. Do you think the pace is too slow, too fast, just right? Give me a thumbs up if it's any of the above. Ooh, he's a sneaky one. But thank you so much for watching this episode. Look forward to the next one. I'm having fun. I hope you're having fun too. And until next time, peace out and geek out.